Hey guys, what is up? Welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Alexandria and I make videos all about personal development, solo female travel, and now van life. In today's video, I wanted to talk a little bit more about the options that are out there and that exist for van life and van conversions. Towards the end, I'll also be getting into my own preferences and how I'm choosing a van that suits my needs and my lifestyle. But before we get into it, if you aren't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below to stay up to date with my progress on my van conversion and to see more videos like this in the future. With that, let's get into it. Now, when it comes to vans and van conversions, you have two main categories in my head. You have the high roof vans and the medium or low roof vans. In that first category, you have three main choices. You have cargo vans or work vans like a Ford Econoline. You can go with a school bus or a schoolie, and the third option being VW vans. So this is like a Eurovan or a van again. And in the second category, some of the more popular vans these days that you might be seeing across Pinterest or Instagram, you have the high top vans like the Mercedes Sprinter, the Ford Transit, and the Ram ProMaster. Now, while both have their pros and cons, I think the second category tends to be more popular for a few reasons. The low roof vans, unfortunately, are very limited on space in terms of headroom. And now I do want to put a caveat in here and say that some school buses are much taller than others, have more space than others, and so it depends what type of schoolie you are talking about, but in general, they tend to not be quite as high as the second category. And by not being able to stand up fully straight in your van, your comfort can be really limited. You know, if you're not able to stand up to get dressed or to cook or to shower, it can be really uncomfortable over long periods of time. The second reason that I think these tend to be less popular is the ability to stealth camp. Unfortunately, they just tend to stick out a little bit more than other options due to their pop-up roofs. You're most likely going to have to either put a fiberglass top on it or you'll have to put a pop-up roof on it. And the last reason I think these are a little bit less popular is because these types of vans or vehicles tend to have a few more miles on them. Now, this is especially true for the VW buses, which are unfortunately known for having more mechanical issues. So with all that said, we're left with three options. In this category, you have the Mercedes Sprinter, the Ford Transit, and the Ram ProMaster. So in the second half of this video, I want to dive a little bit deeper into each one, the pros and cons, and then talk a little bit more about my considerations when choosing a van. Now, first, I want to talk about the Mercedes Sprinter. I know that personally in California, I see a ton of Sprinters out here. They're really everywhere, and usually they have pretty impressive conversions on them. And these are popular for a pretty good reason. You know, if you're looking at the Mercedes Sprinter, especially with a diesel motor, these vans are going to last forever. You know, you can put 300,000, 400,000 plus miles on these vans before they really start to reach the end of their life. They also tend to have a higher resale value because of this. You could sell a Mercedes Sprinter with 150,000 miles on it, fully converted, for $50,000 or $60,000. But unfortunately, with the Sprinter, they also have their issues. The major one being, if you buy a Mercedes Sprinter and you take it out to the middle of the forest and you break down, you cannot take your Mercedes just anywhere. You have to bring your Mercedes to a dealership. And there they have Sprinter certified techs who are able to work on and service your vehicle. This can be problematic for a couple of reasons. One, as a solo female traveler, I really don't want to be concerned about getting stuck in the middle of nowhere and then having to potentially get a ride or get towed somewhere. The second reason this can be problematic is because Mercedes are notorious for being extremely expensive to fix and service. And so on average, maintenance on a Mercedes Sprinter will run you almost $2,000 a year. And in addition to these really expensive maintenance costs and potentially towing services as well, if you break down, they come with a really high sticker value. So overall, the Sprinter looks really cool, it drives really well, and potentially for a very long period of time, but they can very easily become money pits, cost you a lot more in maintenance and repairs than some other options out there. Now, the second choice in this high top van conversion category is the Ford Transit. Some of the pros include them being more reasonably priced than the Sprinter, both in sticker value and maintenance and repairs. And finally, Transits are really great in my opinion because similar to the Sprinter, they are rear wheel drive. And this is good for a couple of reasons, but the main thing that sticks out to me is where the weight is in the van. You know, if you build out a van, your van is going to be weighted backwards. If you have power in the back, however, you're able to propel and carry that weight much more easily, and then you just steer, of course, with the front. So with those pros in mind, it probably seems like the Transit would be the perfect van, right? Unfortunately, the biggest drawback in my head these days is that since COVID and the beginning of the pandemic, Transits have shot up in value. Last year, I remember looking at Transits with 40 or 50,000 miles on them that were roughly $16,000. These days, I'm looking at Transits with 20,000 miles on them them that are running at $38,000 or $39,000. And the third van that I wanted to talk about in this high roof conversion category is the Ram ProMaster. Now, Ram has a ton of benefits, the main ones being that it has a very square and sturdy back, which means more cargo space, as opposed to the Sprinter and the Transit, which tend to be a little bit more curved. And with that larger cargo space, you gain width, which is beneficial in my head at least for one big reason. The back width is about 6'1", which is super beneficial if you're trying to sleep sideways and save some space in the van. In addition to having more space and being square, ProMasters also tend to have a much lower sticker value. You know, a 2021 159 wheelbase high roof van will only cost $34,000 in California. Now, the ProMaster only has one major drawback in my mind at least, but it is pretty significant, and that is that the ProMaster is front wheel drive. And now you might say, well, you know, front wheel drive cars are much easier to handle, they get better gas mileage, there's a lot of benefits to that. I've heard horror stories of folks getting stuck multiple times in a week, whether it be in sand, in snow, or slipping on the ice. And in addition to that, folks say that, you know, even if the weather is beautiful and things are perfect, if they're on concrete and the hill is steep enough, they might need to back up the hill. So with all of that said, which van will I be choosing for van life? Now, if it wasn't obvious from the pros and cons list that I just made, I'm really torn. I think for me personally, I have kind of counted out the Sprinter and definitely the lower roofed vehicles because of, you know, the inaccessibility and the difficulty to live in a low roof full time. And then the Sprinter is just really out of my price range. And again, I don't want to get stuck as a solo female in a van that I can't easily fix or maintain. So that leaves me with the Ford Transit and the Ram ProMaster. And between these two, I am really trying to decide which is going to fit my lifestyle better. I am being pulled towards the Transit, but with that higher sticker value, I just don't know if I can justify paying $35,000 right now to get a used van. However, I did go and test drive both the Transit and the ProMaster yesterday, and I really loved how it drove. I think overall that the comfort was much higher than in the ProMaster. I felt like I was driving a car or a truck as opposed to a bus. And though the back was a little bit more narrow, I don't know that it would make that big of a difference for me personally because again, I am only 5'6". The ProMaster, on the other hand, handled really well. You know, I was able to turn into tight spots without a problem. Maneuvering it through the city for the test drive felt really easy, and again, I didn't feel like I was driving a massive van. It felt more like a large truck. Now, when deciding between these two vehicles, I think it's really going to come down to lifestyle for me. And in wanting to be stationed in the mountains, I'm going to have to deal with ice, steep hills, and snow in the winter. And these three considerations make me really nervous to purchase a ProMaster because even though I think the space and the price are really hard to compete with, if I were to purchase and build out a ProMaster and then not be able to do the things that I am buying the van for, I think I would be really disappointed and frustrated with myself for not just spending a little bit more money and investing in my future home. So with that all laid out, I'm really curious, which van do you think I should choose? Let me know in the comments down below, especially if you already have a Transit or a ProMaster. Which do you prefer and why? In the meantime though, I plan on starting out my build design process and charting everything in a spreadsheet to make sure that the build I'm creating will fit my budget. Alright, that is all that I have for you guys today. Thank you so much for watching until the end. I really appreciate you joining me on this journey and I can't wait to see where it takes us. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.